Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we are going to have a show that will probably bring some information to you if you are in a relationship and wondering, why am I not attracted to my lover anymore? What's going on? They're a decent human being. Why am I not attracted to them? Why am I talking about this? Well, I love talking about sex, intimacy, relationships, all things to do with pleasure. Here on the Pleasure Zone, I've been doing this for over 9 years. You can look back and find well over 400 episodes on all kinds of things, from how to get out of trauma to kink to history to mystery to magicalness to energy to you name it. We talk about it on this show. We talked about things like the history of panties. It's actually a show that I did recently and it's getting a lot of traction. So go have a listen to the history of panties and how fun panties are. And tonight we are talking about relationships. It's kind of a carryover from last week where we talked about why, is it normal to not want sex? And so we're carrying that over to, is it normal to not want sex with your lover? However, we're wording it a little differently. We're looking at some different factors that might be having you feel so turned on by your lover. Why doesn't my spouse turn me on? Or your lovers, maybe you got 12 and 2 of them don't turn you on, but the other 10 do. What's going on? What is it that has you not feel turned on by your spouse or lover? One of the reasons I talk about all this stuff is because I'm a sex and intimacy coach. I'm also a holistic health practitioner. And one of the things I found in my practice was that people would come in with health issues, but one of the things that they really had were relationship issues with themselves and also with others. And so I took on coaching and I took some coaching courses, and then I started to work more with the coaching aspect of this, because also there's always people who have come to me and secretly said, they've come under the guise of, I really want to lose weight. And then secretly they're like, I have erectile dysfunction. And you're like, oh, okay, well, those things actually go in tandem. Let's talk about it. So, and I think I have done an episode on that. We'll see if I have, and if I haven't, I will. So we're going to be talking today about why your spouse doesn't turn you on. And one of the things I think that we need to first look at is, what is attraction? And what gets you attracted to your spouse to begin with? Maybe you were never attracted to your spouse. Maybe you just did it out of obligation. Maybe you were in a prearranged marriage. Maybe you were having such a low on yourself kind of like decade that you just stuck around in a relationship. I know people who have actually said, I got married because my self-esteem was so low, I just didn't think I could do any better. And I cannot tell you how many amazing people I have met who have said that. And so it's kind of like a mind-boggling thing. Like, why are you in a relationship if you're not turned on by your spouse? And I know people who have been married for decades and they're not turned on by their spouses, and sometimes never were. And we have a lot of factors to look at. Sometimes we're looking at things that, because some of these relationships are much older, have been around a while, sometimes we're looking at things that were going on even sociologically. If you got married in 1970, things were a lot different than they are now. So we'll look at some of those things, some of the factors that might be contributing to why your spouse doesn't turn you on anymore. So turn on, I think we need to kind of get clear on that as well. So turn on, for a lot of people, and medically, and in a lot of fields of research, turn on would equal arousal. And as we know from a lot of the shows that I've talked to you about and a lot of the research that is now out there in the last decade, that arousal is not the same as consent, and it's also not the same as pleasure. So we need all those things. We need consent, we need arousal, and we also need pleasure in order for this to be the true, all-encompassing, what I would call turn on. So when we look on what is that, what has you get turned on by your partner, a lot of it has to do with pheromones and hormones, and it has to do with like an animalistic reaction to another person. Those are some fundamentals that are biological, biochemical, and then we have energetics as well. Maybe it's karma. Maybe you've known each other for lifetimes and you're attracted to somebody because, hey, in so many lifetimes you've been married to each other, in so many lifetimes you've killed each other, and all you want to do is kill each other in this lifetime. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why people are attracted to each other. And let's break it down to some fundamentals where we do get attracted to certain things based on our senses. And we have talked about that there are more than 5 senses, including things like interoception, proprioception. We're going to stick with some real basic 5 for you today, some basic 5 senses of what are some things about your spouse that attracted you. And for a lot of people, one of the first things they'll say is, well, my spouse has gained weight since we got together and I just don't like how they look anymore. And oftentimes for me, I just go like, holy cow, could you be any more superficial? But then when we break it down, a lot of times it isn't actually that. It can be a lot of other things. It's like looking at their spouse and they go, oh, actually, it's not that I don't find them attractive. It's that I have affiliated and associated the way that their body looks with somebody who's really ill, and that I'm not attracted to illness. So it could be a weight thing, it could be like a body shape, it could be like, maybe they had really big hooters and then all of a sudden they had breast cancer and their hooters are gone and all you were in love with was their hooters, or they had, great testicles and then they had testicular cancer and their testicles got removed and you're like, that's the only thing I was in love with. So if you're kind of working on the superficial level and it's all about the looks, then as you age and those things change, you will probably lose attraction. So even when I work with young couples, I like to point out that if you love your partner, if their face was missing, if they were in a car accident and they lost half their face and they maintained their personality, would you still like them? Would you choose to have a relationship and work on the relationship with them? And I've had people be really frank and say no. And I've had people say, oh yeah, like that's not a non-issue. It's about who they are. So when looks are the issue, we can start there. You got to figure out whether you're willing, as the person who might be judged, as the person who's too fat, too small boobs, your testicles are missing, you're too short, you're too this, you're too that. If you're the one being judged for all of these things, you got to question whether you would like to be judged for that, whether you're willing to change any of it to accommodate that other person. And do you want to be in a relationship where it's so important to somebody and they're so superficial that it's about just your looks? And it's okay if you do, because maybe you value your looks a lot, and I understand that. Looks in this society are very valuable. We can see that in all kinds of media. When you look at Kardashians, even though I've never watched a Kardashian show in my life, I'm aware of them and I know that they make money based on their looks. So when we look at people, we got to figure out what sense is attracted to them. Was it a visual? Did you look at them and go, fantastic, I'm in love? let's look at other basic senses. Was it their smell? Did you smell their pheromones and you were like, something about that? Now, pheromones are an interesting one because they will change over time. And our pheromones sometimes kick in and they're almost like manipulative, you could say. Like your pheromones will kick in to attract somebody that you sort of inherently know you require in your life, like whether it's for your healing, personal growth, to look after you, you'll send out a signal and that person will hear it, smell it, feel it, they'll pick it up. Pheromones can actually be pretty scenty, and sometimes people will smell them, and sometimes they're way more subtle. But if you've ever smelt somebody's armpit, which I have many times, if you've ever smelt an armpit, you'll notice they're different. Like one armpit will smell different than the other. It's pheromones. It's not that it's like only this part of my body processes garlic and this part processes something else. No, there's energies coming off of it for sure, and pheromones are coming through, and they will come out at different times. So what smell are you giving off? Too, it's like, what are you giving off that's attracting your partner or not attracting your partner? So why are you not turned on by your partner? Does it have to do with their smell? Does it have to do with their looks? Does it have to do with when you go, and I've actually had a report on this too. These are all fun things I get to share with you because I get these reports. So I had a person that I worked with, the husband only, not the wife. But the husband reported that the wife said that the taste of his genitals was so bad that she was totally turned off by him. And I can get that. His body had a very strange odor about him. It's probably because he worked with a lot of chemicals. And so yes, so there's that. That can be a total turnoff. Sometimes, you could have the most incredibly beautiful spouse, and yet maybe they have a vulva that has, or maybe internally they've got lots of stuff going on that's like funk, like maybe they got some funky funk going on, which could be anywhere from like endometriosis, maybe they got some gonorrhea going down, some chlamydia, maybe they got some funky funk, and that's turning you off. So that smell, that'll turn you off, usually, right? So these are things to actually address. Like if you have a partner who, when you go to bed and all you smell is their genitals, and their genitals are like a massive turnoff, you might want to go, just thought I'd mention to you that I think you should go to the doctor because something seems a little off. Not everybody has a super good nose to spot those things out, and those can actually be really good things to check on, because if you are having a funk and you don't smell it yourself, you might have something going on with your own olfactory system, which can be a connection in the brain. And you might actually have like some super funk going on that needs to be addressed. Like you might need to go for some ablations. You might need to get some antibiotics. You might need to get some funk cleaned out. So if you got the funk, or if your partner has the funk, whether it's like smegma funk, or you got endometriosis funk, or you got the funk happening, let your partner know that they got the funk happening so that they can take care of it. Like even smegma funk over time can actually lead to a lot of like fungal infections around the foreskin, and like a lot of irritation and soreness, and it can lead to problems. So you definitely want to address anything, especially if there's foreskin. There is a bigger chance of holding in some bacteria and some fungus and things. So you want to take care of the funk. If there's funk, take care of the funk. So the sight, how's your partner looking? If they really are, you look at them and you're like, ugh, you know what? There's always turning off the lights. There's always also trying things like makeup, haircuts, all kinds of things can change your visual appearance. And the thing is, usually if you're not attracted to your spouse, the chances are they might not feel attractive themselves. And sometimes it's the other way around. Like you don't feel attractive yourself, but other people are attracted to you. That you're just putting out a good vibe, and you just probably don't even understand why people are. You're like, I don't know why people are attracted to me, but they are. So there you go. It's your vibe. So if you got your, we've got touched on the looks. Oh, sound. That's another one. So there can be noises that drive you absolutely nuts coming from your spouse, whether it's that they have like chronic flatulence, or whether they have snoring, or whether they have chewing habits that drive you crazy, or they slurp when they drink, or something about the way they brush their teeth. I'm just bringing up ones that I've actually experienced. So if you have these noises, or maybe it's like the way they walk, and they walk really loud and stompy, you're just like, ugh, those noises can drive you nuts. It can be the tone of their voice or their laughter. It'll surprise you, but there are definitely things that can be noise oriented that will throw you off, and taste and sound, and touched on those basic 5 senses. So when we come back after this break, we're going to look at some other reasons why your spouse doesn't turn you on. And they're pretty easy to address. We'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we are talking about why my spouse doesn't turn me on. Oh my, what's going on? So we talked about some of the reasons you might be attracted to your spouse. Maybe their smell, their pheromones turned you on, but there might be smells now that don't turn you on so much. Could be halitosis, could be that they got some funk going down on the nether regions. They might not bathe very often. They just might have some funk. I know that I have worked with some bodies that are pretty darn funky, and they're not alive anymore. So I can say, like, I do remember working with a woman whose body was pretty much full of necrotizing tissue. In other words, she was kind of rotting, and you could smell it, and it was really bad. And I really felt for her, because there was, like, in her home, it smelled really bad. And like, I actually smelled like that when I left. It was that bad, to the point where it scared my 3-year-old child at the time. And my Ziva just started crying because it smelled so bad. So when you got a funk, and your funk permeates your home, and then it permeates everybody who walks in your home, that's not a good funk. And you got to take care of that, because you're probably rotting from the inside. So don't ignore those things. Like, those smells are actually indicators that you need to get some attention. You need to get that looked at by professionals, you need to get that dealt with. Just a reminder that funks and smellies can actually be a reason to go get that checked out, but also it can be a reason why your partner is not attracted to you, because those funky funks, what they can also indicate to our brain is there's something off there. Or those funky funks of rot smells can make you go, that person's not healthy and that's not safe, and I don't want that in my body. So it's like a safety mechanism to not be attracted to that. So unless you're kind of in a mode where you feel really crummy about yourself and you're like, I don't care if I die, so whatever, I'll just be attracted to the funky funk. That happens too. There's no judgment on that. It's just what happens. But if you do have the funky funk, or if your partner has the funk, just let them know. And how do you bring that up in conversation is you just go, hey, honey, I'm really kind of concerned that there's something going on with you because I've noticed that there's a smell happening, and maybe it's a good idea if you'd like me to go to the doctor with you, if you'd like to go alone, but I think it would be good to get it checked out. So there isn't really like the nicest way to put it to say you got the funky funk, but bringing it up is important because sometimes people who have the funky funk have been it so long they don't even know that they've got it and they can't smell it. So, all right, we're going to move away from our senses for now, and we're going to move into some other reasons why you might not be attracted to your partner. I know that story about the necrotizing tissue, that rot tissue, was pretty disgusting. You guys are welcome. It's the pleasure zone. Who isn't turned on by that story? So we are talking now about some other reasons why you might not be turned on by your spouse. And one of them might be that you are completely sidetracked by somebody else, that you are enamored completely. You are looking at an ideal and you're like, oh, Antonio Banderas, you are my man. And you just think about that, I don't know why Antonio, but why not? I think it's because in university, my roommates and I had this poster of Antonio Banderas, and we were like, worshipped it. So Antonio Banderas, if you're out there, you could be the reason why people are not attracted to their spouse. So what I suggest when you are attracted to somebody else is not to avoid that. It doesn't mean that you act on it, but take that energy and understand what it is. What is it about this person that you find so alluring, so interesting? The chances are you either have those qualities or those are qualities that you would like to foster in yourself. And that when you know that, you can start to foster those qualities in yourself. A lot of times those qualities will be qualities that your partner already does have, but you might not have seen it in them for a while. And so you can nurture those qualities back as well. So like if you remember your partner being really soft and gentle and kind, and now you're like, they're not soft, gentle, and kind anymore. You have a conversation with them about, hey, is there something going on? Can we have a conversation about how you feel? Blah, blah, blah. If they've really far gone and maybe they have like, a tumor in their pituitary gland or in their pineal gland and they're non-functional and their personality is completely changed, that's a whole other situation. That's medical. But if it's just like a flip of emotion and it's not like a medical condition causing the flip of emotion, then it's usually resolvable unless there's been some other things, which we will talk about as well. Trust is a big one too. Why you might not be turned on by your spouse. You might not have trust anymore. Might not have trust in yourself, and you might not have trust in them. Trust is huge. Primal trust is huge because it's what keeps us alive and surviving. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but are you attracted to somebody else? And are you making them ideal? Like, are you putting everything on them as if they are some kind of demigod that's going to be the best relationship you've ever had? And you think they're phenomenal and you think they're the answer to life. And if you have that, again, look at all their qualities that you see in them, because they might not even be their qualities. You might have projected some stuff at them as perfection because you're looking for perfection in a relationship. So look at those qualities and see how you can foster them in yourself, nurture them in yourself. And look at what attracts you to them. Is it their body? Is it all those five senses that you experience? Oh man, they smell so good. oh man, like their body looks so good. Oh man, like to touch them feels so good. Oh, that's when we forgot to talk about touch. Some people will be feeling very turned off by their partner's touch. Could be the moistness of the hands, might be like, ugh. It could also be the pressure of their hands. I've worked with couples teaching them how to follow each other's lead and to actually like learn touch with each other. And there is a great method that you can learn called the Touch Blueprint. It's really great work. You can experience it, you can try it out, and it's a great way to learn different touch techniques. So you can know if the touch that you're giving your partner works for them and vice versa. I've done shows on the touch the Touch Blueprint, but you can look it up. The Touch Blueprint is not new. I did not create it. So when we look at, what are we attracted to? Is it somebody else? Is it something about our partner? Are we not attracted anymore about anything? I'd rather be with Antonio Banderas. Actually not. I'm going to go with David Tennant, but a lot of you might not know David Tennant. So, but in my heart of hearts, I'm going with David Tennant. And so, yeah. Are you attracted to someone else? And my husband full on knows I'm attracted to David Tennant, along with there's a Canadian actor, and I did get to meet him, Bruce McCullough, cutest little dude ever. So cute, so freaking adorable. Yep, I'm attracted to him. So, but there are people I'm attracted to, and a lot of times it has to do with their brilliance and their humor. And so being sapiosexual, it takes a lot more than your body to turn me on. And having somebody who's like brilliant, interesting, can speak multiple languages, that's a super bonus. Those are all great. And genius is sexy for me. So you might find you'll learn about yourself actually as you go through and find out what it is you're attracted to them about. You might find out that you've had a trend your whole life, that maybe you've always liked people that you saw as brilliant. They could be brilliant verging on psychotic, because psychos are also quite brilliant. And it could be, more superficial about their bodies, and that's okay. That's I mean, brilliance is kind of superficial in a way too, because it can go, you can lose your mind. So the person, their energy, who they are as a being, that's a really cool thing to be attracted to. So look at trust as well. And in your relationship, do you trust you? Like, do you trust that you're going to stand up for yourself? Because if you don't, then you might not want to even get involved with your partner, because you might go, well, I'm just going to give in again and do what he wants to do, or do what she wants to do, or do what they want to do. I'm just going to do that again. So why bother? I don't care. I don't get turned on anyway. There can be a lot of that. I just give up. I surrender, because you don't trust that you'll stand up for yourself and ask for what you would like. And we're just not really trained into saying what we would like. We've been shut down by that time and again. I bet from childhood, you can the only time you're allowed to ask for things is Christmas, and it's to Santa. The rest of the time, no, you're not allowed to ask. Getting in the habit of asking can be tricky, but it's so worth it. And also asking for things at first that aren't so significant to you can be really helpful, so that if you do get rejected, you don't feel so rejected. So, hey, can we go for ice cream together? No. Okay, cool. It's not that significant. But ice cream might be significant to you. I'm just throwing it out there. It could be, if you're like, hey, let's go to I don't know, Thailand together, and your partner's like, no, that's a bigger rejection than let's go for ice cream together. So just knowing that rejection can come up when for a lot of different things, and so that can cause some feelings of like disconnect and lack of attraction. But we were talking about trust, so I just want to tap back into that. So trusting yourself to know that you'll stand up for yourself and what you desire, but also trusting your partner. Like, you might find that your partner's got some pretty questionable behavior. Like, maybe they're texting lovers all night long, or that's what you think they're doing. You're like, they must be texting lovers. It's 9 o'clock at night. But they're not. They're actually just completely absorbed in their own world doing something silly. Or you might not trust them for a variety of reasons, possibly your past, possibly you have a track record of dating people who cheat on you, or that you call cheating on you. So, there might be some conversations to be had as well about what is what is a deal breaker for you. So, like, if your partner is flirting with somebody else, that might be okay. But then, if somebody sticks their crotch in your partner's face, just like bumping, grinding with clothes on, you might be like, hey, that's too far. Or you might be like, hey, that's not too far, that's fine, whatever. So know what your limits are too, and trust what works for you. And then also having that conversation with your partner so that your partner can be aware of what your limits are. And being clear on your limits is really good. Just this is like a place where don't cross this boundary. Do not stick your hand down somebody's pants and stroke them off in front of me and the family at Christmas time. That's not cool. So I know that seems like a really strange thing that you might have to mention, but all families are different and people do things. So that got my brain all twisty excited. But the inappropriateness makes me laugh. My brain is so inappropriate. So we're going to head to our next commercial break, and we're going to look at some other reasons why you might like your partner, but you're not turned on by them after this commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. For those of you watching video wondering what on earth is that lady doing there on video, I'm just doing some number 8s with my hips while we stand here because I can. What a great time to like engage your hips and get them rocking and rolling, get them lubricated so that you can go out and have some good action after the show, right? Take the break to do some number 8s. If you don't know what they are, look at some Spanish dancers and they do number 8s all the time. So we are talking about why doesn't my spouse turn me on, and why are we having a Southern accent for that? Who knows and who cares? But we are, yeehaw. So why doesn't my spouse turn me on? I think one of the things that can be a contributing, I'm going to say it different, not a contributing factor, a contributing factor is, do you know who your partner is? Like, truly, do you know how weird they are? Do you know how weirdly wonderful they are and like totally eccentric and strange and all that fun jazz? Do you know them on a deeper level? Do you know like their thought process? Do you understand them and trust that you know who they are, and you can rely on that about them? When you do, it can be really comforting. So there are things that you can know about your partner that they don't even know about themselves because you observe them, and they might not be observing themselves all the time, and you can just know it, just secretly know certain things about them. Like I secretly know that my husband is like one of the top-notch, most loyal human beings on the planet. He'll never say it, and he doesn't have to. In fact, when people do say it, it's kind of weird. Like when people say it about themselves, you're like, did you have to say it? Because that kind of makes me wonder. But I know that about him, and he's never had to say anything to me like, I'll never cheat on you. I just know that about him. So when you have certain things that you know about your partner, some core personality traits, and you can always look up a list of personality traits for fun if you like. You know, you can Google search these personality traits. There's a lot of them. There's some really cool ways to look at personality traits. I can't remember the names of the systems right now, but go ahead and look them up. So if you can look up personality traits and just see what you think some of the personality traits of your partner are, and then go through that same list of personality traits and see what you think are your personality traits. You might find that you complement each other really well, that you have things that are very different, and you might find that you have things that are very much the same. And knowing some of these things can be helpful in developing more connection, and connection can help bring the turn on back. So when you look at knowing your partner on a deeper level, just see what you already know about them, and then ask some probing questions about them. You can ask questions like, what are your thoughts on God? That's a deeper level, right? What are your thoughts on, like we've had conversations in our house on this, like, what are your thoughts on the moon landing? Those are abstract conversations, not necessarily deep about yourself, but it certainly reveals things about how a person thinks, where their mindset is, how are they an out of the box thinker? Are they following the standard norms? What are their thoughts, right? So asking weird things that you're curious about can be really helpful. I remember in university, I have a lot of like university stories tonight, but I remember in university, I had friends that I would write to like old fashioned way, by the mail, like with stamps on the mail. We did that. It was the 90s, and not everybody had a laptop. I certainly didn't. And to get access to internet, I had to go to like a computer lab, sign out time, and then I had like a designated time and I could write emails, and I didn't do it very often because it was such a task. And most of the time there was only like 200 computers for a school of 15,000 people. It was crazy. So that was our computer lab at the University of Windsor. I'm sure it's a lot different now because people tend to buy laptops. Back then they were thousands, nobody could afford them. I didn't even have my own laptop till 2013. so yeah, back in the day, that just went down a rabbit hole. Back in the day, I had this friend who would write to me, and we would have these like deeply weird conversations. Adam, if you're listening, this one's for you. There was a question that's always made me wonder, what the heck did that even mean? But even in high school, so we went to high school together, Adam and I, and we would write in school, we'd write deep conversations about life and philosophy. And I did this with a lot of friends. And one day I'll actually have one of my high school friends on to read some of my high school letters to all of you when I gave sex advice when I was 18 years old throughout. And she kept a lot of them. So the deep question he said to me was, it was a one-liner, and we would just use the same paper and write back and forth on it. The question was, what is your experience and feeling of electric blue? And I was like, wow, what does that even mean? That's so deep. And I got stumped and I didn't even respond. I don't think I responded, but I remember thinking, wow, what a deep, not deep question. And so you can ask these randomly fun things and just get in a conversation that's playful about electric blue, because it's really important to talk about. I will bring up silly questions in our home to try and break sometimes, not just wind, we break wind all the time, but sometimes to try and break monotony, or like if the energy feels stagnant or if somebody's in a funk, I'll just bring up random weird things like, you know, how did you feel about the giraffe takeover when they invaded Iraq? How did you feel about those giraffes invading? And then the conversation will be totally abstract and crazy because it's like, well, I didn't really agree with the giraffe's methods. And, you know, there's probably a better way they could have approached it. It gets you into just sometimes out of seriousness and just being able to explore thought and see how crazy and wild your brain is. It's not that you get to know each other on a deeper level, but sometimes it can just be a fun way to break monotony. So, and are you willing to get to know them is the question. So ask whatever questions you like to get to know them. Try to make your questions not judgmental, like, did you ever cheat on anybody? Oh my God, like, what's your concept of cheating? And they'll be like, what do you mean, what's your concept of cheating? You see, it can go hardcore really fast. So having some conversations of like, you know, you don't just like randomly bring up, so what's your concept of cheating? Like, what qualifies cheating with you? You can bring that up in a conversation at some point if you're watching a movie and there's cheating going on, and talk about it. It's a good conversation to have, absolutely. It's actually a better conversation to have before you get in a long-term relationship and get those things like really clear on your deal and deliver, and then look at that deal and deliver about every year and just see where you stand at the time. That's where like our deal and deliver was like originally when I met my husband, our deal and deliver for me to have sex with somebody else was a certain amount of money. And since that time it's tripled. So I really like that I've gone up in value and that we do have these weird conversations on occasion. And I encourage you to have conversations like that because they might seem inappropriate to you, but these are things that could happen. So if they could happen, then what would be the scenario? You know, if you're going to have sex with somebody else, you at least need to get paid. That's my husband's take on it. And you got to get paid up front, and this is how much money you need to make. Okay, cool. So now I know what your deal and deliver is. So having those can be helpful. And I don't say that everybody needs to have as a discussion like in the same way that my husband and I had, but it can be playful and fun, and it actually can be fun to hear how much your partner values your sex too. Like I was like, wow, my sex is worth that much money. Woo, that's awesome. And we did have a running joke going on that this is about a month or two into relationship with my husband, and he bought me a vehicle, and I was like, wow. He's like, I'm paying you back for the sex. I'm like, oh yeah, that's awesome. I just got paid for sex with a vehicle. So good. So you can have fun with it. You know, a lot of times people will get offended by getting paid for sex. Hell no, your sex is valuable. And like, how much money would you like for it? Okay, that's a side note. But maybe it's not. Maybe you're not turned on by your spouse because you do want cash for sex and you want to get paid. Maybe you'll be like, hey, yeah, honey, I'll give you that blowjob for $100. And your husband's like, hell yeah, I'm so into, or your wife or whoever, maybe they're so into paying for it, and it could be fun. You could have a lot of fun with this. So why Why are you not turned on by your spouse? Probably a lot of reasons. And there are a lot of ways that you can get back to being turned on by them if you choose it. And I encourage you to, if you'd like to have some coaching on that, you'd like to dive in, absolutely connect with me. Go on to my website, milicajelenic.com. That's milicajelenic.com. You can do it over this next commercial break. Book time with me. You can book the 15-minute quickie, and we can get on a call and chat about things so that you can just figure out, is this something that you'd like to change? Would you like to actually be attracted to your partner? And what do we need to do to get you there? So if you have all these questions written down, kind of explore them for yourself, get a hold of me, and we can run through them and figure out what's going on. All right, we're going to head to our next commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to look at a couple more questions before we leave. You are listening to The Pleasure Zone and watching it here on Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we are talking about why am I not turned on by my spouse, lover. You can put any word in there you want. I just use spouse because a lot of the people that I work with happen to be married couples. And there's usually the question of like, we've been together for 45 years and I'm just not attracted to my spouse. And then my question was, when were you attracted to your spouse? So that's one of the actually first questions I do ask, and that I have listed as number 5, because when I was thinking about them, they just kind of popped up randomly. So when were you attracted to them? Was it, the first date, and then it stayed along for the second date, the third date, and then it dropped, but you were like, I'm committed, it's the third date. Don't you get married if you've had 3 dates? And sometimes when people have been in a relationship for 40 or 50 years, that's exactly what was going on. I know couples who have been married, they dated for 2 weeks and they got married, back in like 1950, 1960. So maybe somebody was pregnant, maybe something was going on. So when did you realize you were no longer attracted? Did they do something? Was it, an aging thing? Was it, if you looked at all the other stuff that we looked at last week, including your hormones and everything else, and that's normal, and you're still like, I'm not finding anything I like about my partner. And if you find nothing you like about your partner, the question is, why are you still there? But if you can find something that you do like about them, they're a hard worker, maybe they're, funny, maybe they are sociable, maybe they have a lot of qualities that you really admire, and you like their personality, but you're just not horny for them. So we got to look at some of the other things around the senses. We got to look at, are you attracted to somebody else? Are you being, is your attention being pulled away by somebody else? What's going on? Do you know them anymore? It's been a long time. Maybe kids got involved and, somebody wasn't helping out with the kids. Say you felt like you took the brunt of the house and the kids and everything else. And maybe you're the money earner on top of that. And you're like, you know what, if I'm doing everything, I might as well masturbate and forget about you, because that frankly does happen. Did happen to me after I had my child. So yeah, there was like, and I wasn't with my husband at the time. I was with somebody else, and I was like, well, I'm the money earner. I look after the child all the time. I'm doing all of this, and I'm supposed to be attracted to you. You bring nothing to the relationship except for chaos. So yeah, not attractive when all they bring is chaos and blah. So that is absolutely something to consider. And if you're the person that is like, why aren't you attracted to me? Have a moment and sit back and go, oh, you know what? When they asked me to help out, did I? No. When they asked to have a conversation, did I? No. When they asked me to cuddle, did I? No. When they asked for all these things that could have been love languages and you didn't deliver, and you still wonder why they're not horny for you. Really? You got to think about that. Do you? You need to think about it, because I think you haven't been listening. So think about it. And maybe you can actually resolve some things. Maybe you can get your relationship back on track. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's over and done with. But when two people are willing, able, and choosing it, absolutely, you can get your relationship not only back on track, because the track will sometimes lead you back to where you were, get you on a new track, a speed track, and you can move faster, get things done more efficiently, have a better relationship. So if you just surrender to the idea that nothing's ever going to change, guess what? You're right. Because you've decided that and you surrendered and you're like, they're never going to change. You will never be able to see them different, and you'll never be able to see yourself different. And if they're doing the same thing to you, then the chances are that relationship is doomed. However, if you have not surrendered to that and you're thinking, you know what, I would love to be able to be horny for my partner again. I would love to bring back the good times. I would love to have some kinky fun times. What do I need to do that? Maybe there's a conversation that's required. Maybe there's some acknowledgement, some different things that are needed to be required. And if you're hearing this and you're like, I've already tried and it didn't work. Okay, you tried your way. Now maybe it's time to bring in an expert, bring in a coach to actually bring you to another level so that you can have a conversation that makes sense to both of you. I think probably because I grew up in a home where I translated my father from my mother for years, and did so even after their divorce, that I learned to translate people. And it's one of the things I'm really good at. So if you need a translator in your relationship, just let me know and connect with me through my website, milicajelenic.com. It's some weird, wacky capacity I have to be able to translate people to each other. And so, yeah, when we look at, is there something else that's going on? When I say that translating things, sometimes there's something you really like desire, but you have no idea how to ask for it, or you think you've asked for it, but you're like, well, I don't understand. It's because whatever you're saying isn't quite coming across the same way. So sometimes you need a translator to assist with getting the words so that your partner can hear you and understand what you're asking for. What is your big ask that you've been avoiding asking for? Maybe they'd like it too. And if you do have a big ask that you've been asking for, one that you've been hoping to ask for, but you didn't know how to ask for, go over to my website, grab at the very bottom of my website, if you click on, there's a do's, don'ts, maybes list, grab that, it's free. I think you might get emails just to tell you about the updates of when my shows come through. I'm not like plugging you to have a session with me or anything like that. If you would, though, after you do the do's, don'ts, maybes list and you'd like some assistance going through it, you can always book a free 15-minute session with me, or you can book a time that you can pay for if you want. But 15 minutes is free, so remember to take me up on that. For now, I still offer that. Sometime very near future, I will not be offering that. So my schedule is filling up, but for now, I'm still available for that. So what are we going to have next week, guys? We're going to be talking, is it normal to be scared of intimacy? And yes and no. We don't need to be scared of intimacy, but man, is it ever common? And there are a lot of common reasons for it. Some of those common reasons are not normal. Like abuse is not normal, but it is common. We'll be talking all about that next week. finding some solutions to get you back on track so you're not so scared of intimacy with you first and with somebody else after.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.